Yo soy una hija del Inti Sol, de la Pachamama y del Inti Sol.
We're recording, so let's get going. Go on, Mr. Host.
Do you want to start
with the mostest.
Right. For those that don't know what a mushroom ceremony is.
Oh, by the way, we're talking about
obviously,
mushroom ceremonies tonight, guys.
It's going into the different realms, the different dimensions. So obviously, everyone's talked about these realms and these dimensions and read about the esoteric, but this is to actually physically experience the esoteric for itself, and obviously going from the lower aeons into the upper aeons. For people who aren't experienced, this is where they can get lost and they can have like bad trips because one, they don't understand the esoteric, and two, it goes off your own mind setting. So if you've got limited knowledge of these places, you won't dive deep. So the more knowledge you've got of these places, the further your consciousness can actually travel because you're letting go. So what can happen is it's called an anchor. So everyone's heard of the silver cord, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which connects you to your astral. So if you physically believe that you are this, the stronger your pull will be to the physical. So that's where people struggle and they don't let go. The more you let go and believe is the further you'll actually travel, and the higher up you go through the planes. So, what was that, Des?
It's somebody that wasn't on silent. They've just muted themselves.
Oh, all right.
Not me.
So that's what happens when you go into like a mushroom trip. So obviously everyone's at different stages of gnosis and how much they actually understand the spiritual and the esoteric realms. So when you're actually going into the esoteric realms, especially the lower planes, is where you can come across these either benevolent or malevolent entities. And this is where, again, people can get tricked, they can get manipulated, and they can, like you've heard so many people talk on podcasts that they talk to these machine elves. The words in this clue, they are machines. So they belong to Yaldabaoth. If they are malevolent beings, they're not good, they're tricksters. So you've got a lot of tricksters, and everything you've got to associate is from the heart. So you can't go off of what you see. You've got to go off of what you feel inside. It's all to do with energy. And this is where when people go onto these esoteric trips, it's everything you see is energy going through portals, going through dimensions, and obviously astral planing, and then going into the upper aeons is all energy. You can either move timelines as well, so you can go backwards, you can either go forwards, and again you can go up and down the plane. So you're multi-traveling through hyperdimensional. So when people talk about aliens, they're not physical things, they are hyperdimensional beings. They're beings that you will see through your mind, and this is what everything's created is from your mind. Has anyone got any questions about any of that so far? So what I'll do is I'll let Jo talk about her experience, how she experienced the lower levels, and then obviously how she transferred up, and then I can talk about mine, and obviously my Mrs. Sam, who's on here, when she's got the little one to sleep, she can either talk about her experience as well, because me and Sam have done things that not many people can do. We've actually shared a psychedelic experience together. We've gone into each other's consciousness. So we've joined the consciousness together. So everything I'm seeing, she's seeing with me, and vice versa. So we're actually in each other's consciousness. So they say that people can only do that when you're twin flames, because you're both the same energy. So I'm the masculine energy, she's the feminine energy. So in the esoteric realms, in the upper aeons, we are one being together. That's what twin flames are. So people mistaken soul mates. Soulmates are people on this plane that we learn from. So soul belongs to the demiurge, right? This is the realm. So anything between the lower aeon and the upper aeon is your soul realm, the astral. So the demiurge can still manipulate everything into that realm. Hence why the soul is controlled by the mind. So the mind, you've got your subconsciousness, not the high consciousness. Once you get into the high consciousness, that is when you go into the upper aeons, which is the top level, which is where we originally come from, which is Plumora. So, Joe, if you want to talk a bit about your experiences from how you remember the lower astral going into the astral, and then obviously into Pomora.
Well, I had a really good experience. Although I felt a lot of pain in my experience, I didn't have the terrors. The beginning of it, I could feel my soul wanting to leave my body. And because of my attachment to my body, I very much didn't want that to go. So my body was going through a lot of changes. There was one time, if you want to, I have done a video on this for anybody who wants to go and watch a lengthy, and I've actually, me and Dan recorded it. Well, Dan recorded it, so some of recordings on there. So sorry, some of the recording is on there to show you that when you are under the influence of mushrooms, you are at the complete surrender of those mushrooms. You cannot lie about anything. Whatever your soul spirit wants to say, it will say. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is you can't cheat your way through this. So at the beginning of it, when my body was when the soul was wanting to leave my body, I could feel, I knew I was aware of my body, but I wasn't aware of left and right. It was all very central. And then there was a time where it was like my body was wanting to correct itself. And the way I described it to Dan, it was like grey and black bars, and they were crisscross. And I actually felt my body was jerking like that. And I said to Dan, is my body moving? And he said, no, you're really still. But it felt like my body was all over the place. And then I went to a feeling of I wanted to dance. So what I can remember, what I saw at this point now, because I said to Dan, I feel like I want to dance. My body was all oranges and golds, and it was like it was all spheres that were all moving not coherently, all moving. Oh, just one big dance. My body was just all, at this point I couldn't feel my body. It was just all this movement of psychedelic, you could call it psychedelic movement. My body was just all these swirling. Dwayne's smiling because he knows what I'm trying to explain, but I can't. Like Dan was going on. He said, "What can you see?" And sometimes I couldn't explain what I was seeing. I couldn't verbalize what I was seeing. So, and then as I traveled further, I will say that my body didn't want to come back. My soul didn't want to come back to my body. It tried to come back, and Dan was like, "It's just like fuck off." Didn't want to come back. So for 3-4 hours, I was out of my body traveling. I met my mum, I met Charlie, but when I say I met them, I didn't meet them as in physical form. I felt their energy. I was crying my eyes. That was a very painful experience, very painful. Dan will attest to how much I was crying through the experience. I met the demon that has visited me in this realm. I told the demon to F off, basically. And again, that's in my recording. In my video, I was basically saying, you don't have power over me. Nobody has power over me. You've been trying to suppress me my whole life. I remembered places that I went to on my projection that I've been to in this realm. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, I've told a story, and again, I've mentioned it in a video, when I got stoned when I was in my 20s. And Jim Morrison was in the background playing Break On Through to the Other Side. Well, I broke on through to the other side. And I went somewhere, and I don't know, time's completely different when you're astral projection. You've got no idea of time. I went somewhere, and when I came back, the friends I was with had to give me a brown paper bag because I was hyperventilating. There was another place that I visited when one of my cats, I'm trying to rush through it all, when one of my cats went missing. In my projection, I said, Jake's brought me here, because I'd met the energy of Jake by this point, and I said, Jake's brought me here. He showed me this place when I was looking for him that night. What else can I say?
To just jump in about explaining what's happening from a facilitator's point of view. So when Jo was out, when she was going further up, when she felt that she was coming down, she was saying, I'm coming back down. And what she was feeling was everything was getting smaller and smaller and condensed, because that's her coming back into this meat suit. And she's like, I don't like it. I don't want to be back. I feel claustrophobic. But when she was further she was going up, the more space that she was having, she more free that she felt, and that her energy was bouncing everywhere, that she was traveling miles and miles and miles because she was astral projecting. So she felt more free, that her energy can just bounce here, there, and everywhere. And obviously, the further she was getting is once she come up to her test stage, which is she went down to what happened was she visited Source. She went through the darkness, and for about 10 minutes, I asked her what you're seeing, and she said it's just literally darkness. And then Source came with her to a question. He went, "What do you want to ask?" Because I told her at the beginning, any questions you want to ask Source, this is where you ask them. And her response was, "I don't have any questions." So literally after that, he went, "Well, guess what? I'm going to make the questions for you." And this is where it took us to the house of where this entity that has been with her since a child. So while she was under, I was doing my sage above her over her chakras, and her solar plexus and her heart chakras were completely blocked. Other chakras were all firing quite well, especially a throat and upwards to a star chakra were all firing up, but her heart and her solar plexus were pulling in. So whatever this entity that was with her as a kid was attached to them two chakras, which wouldn't let go. So she went to a house where the entity originally has been with her since a child, and it's been messing around with her. Every time she's tried to have this breakthrough, especially using her heart, it's always pulled her back, which is stopping her from progressing as a person. Obviously, she's got her own stories about that and how it worked through her experiences of how she's never let people in and so forth, and she struggled with that. And it's all because of this entity. Because this entity, when she's managed to get to a point in her life where she was at the most happiest, this is when the entity came to her when it at its strongest, and this is what it does. So, as Stanley Kubrick calls it, the movie The Shining. These negative entities feed off your shine, your divine spark. The bigger your spark is, your aura, the more they want to manipulate and feed off you because it's strong for them. It's more power for them. So Joe actually then faced this entity, and instead of having a battle with it, which is what it wants, and it wants it to be scared of it, she actually embraced this entity and told it with compassion and love that she loved it, and she thanked it for whatever it did for her, the lessons it taught her. And as soon as she was doing that and speaking from the heart, obviously the heart chakra then released, and the actual entity, which was like a shadow demon figure, actually changed then into a bright coloured phoenix, which is actually what Joe's actually drawn from a child when I can't remember, we were just 12, Joe.
Something like that. So I'll just give you a bit of a backstory. So when I was about 6, I had this dream that I was loving this dream so much. It was all colours and there was something in the middle, but I can't remember specifically, but I know I was loving this dream so much. When I woke up, I tried to get the dream back by going sitting on the landing. I remember being a small child trying to get this dream back sitting on the landing because I was loving this dream so much. And as I've been going through this, I've been getting these little memories back, and the dream was one, talking to Dan and stuff. And I drew a phoenix, or a bird of paradise, I called it. So I don't know if you can ignore Dolph. I had a big crush of Dolph Lundgren when I was a kid. That phoenix there, don't know how old I was, or that bird. I drew that. Didn't know why I'd drawn it or painted it when I was a youngster, but in my astral projection, in my journey, I actually said to this demon, why do you want me to fear you? I love you. I drew you when I was a child. I painted you as a bird of paradise. Now, when I painted that, I had no idea of, so that's what the astral projection did for me. It brought back visions and memories and the whys of what I did, even going back to as a 6-year-old. And I knew, and I said to this demon, you have been suppressing me all of my life. It visited me again. I've done a video of this. I sent a photograph to Dan. I've got a photograph of this demon in my conservatory. And Dan, so I didn't see the demon at first. I just saw all the orbs. things have moved in the house basically, which drew my attention to, and I was taking photographs, and I sent this photograph down. He went, we're gonna get going in a minute. Do you want to stop and then we'll come back in?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
And so
Right, go on.
obviously the spiders are manifesting at the beginning, and this is so you've got to think of energy. It's trying to build up. So the more fear it's creating, the stronger it can become, and the more physical it become. Obviously to show itself, which is then becomes more scary. So everyone's got their own traumas from past life traumas, things that they fear, and this is what manifests. So when people say they have bad trips, it's their fears that are manifesting in the esoteric. And this is what these archons do, is they feed off your fear. So this is why people, if you're scared of clowns, you'll end up seeing clowns as the archon or anything like that, because it wants you to put you in that state of fear. It does not want you to progress through these levels of consciousness, because you will start off as collective, then you go into individual, then you go into your subconsciousness, and then you go into your high consciousness, which is what Christ is. So it's stopping you to finding out who you really are and how powerful you are. And again, Joel's experience when she realized from source is because her brain has to relate to things in the physical, because it's too much to process in words what she is. She recognized herself as 11 from Stranger Things, that she had these powers, that she can move things, she has psychic abilities, telekinesis, and she wasn't this weak person, but we are in matter, that we're not powerful. And this is what the negative entities do. They do not want you to realize just how powerful and strong you are and where you come from, because once you realize where you come from and who you are, you then become a threat to them, because they have to reveal themselves, because you hold the power. And it's, again, when you hear exorcisms and they say to the demons, as soon as they know the name, the demon's lost its power. And it's the same thing there. So what Joe's doing is exactly the same as an exorcist. Is she's making it weaker, this entity, telling it from her heart how much she loves it, how much compassion she has for it, and she no longer fears it and thanks it for everything that it's done for her. It's then lost all its power, and then it's had to change through transformation into the phoenix. And those who know about the phoenix actually is manifested by people who are on that journey of Christ consciousness. So we bring in the phoenix. Before the phoenix, it was a bird called Aquila, which is the eagle, which is what brought on the great flood. It's all through the energies. So people that are waking up to who they are, the I am, we manifest the phoenix, which then comes out and takes out all the soulless beings, all the negative energies, and that's what the phoenix is designed to do. Hence why Joe's perception, when she destroyed the evil entity, it turned into a colourful, beautiful bird, the phoenix, which obviously would have been setting itself on fire, because it's no longer. And she even said to it, when she's seen it, she's like, "You're not tricking me, are you? You're going to leave me alone, aren't you?" Because
that was it. I said, I'm not going to have any deception here. There's enough deception in the physical realm. I'm not having it here.
And it said, "I'm not lying to you," and that's where she knew that he was telling the truth, because she could feel, like, with words, it was energy it was giving off. Saying,
energy. There was no like when my mum came and when my cats came. There wasn't a conversation. This is why it's great to have Dan there, because obviously he could, because a lot of my recording I'm speaking very, very quiet. So when I listen back to it, I'm missing a lot of what I'm actually saying, and obviously I can't remember everything that I've said. There's only certain bits. This is why it's great having Dan on to remind me of what I said. But because like I visited home, I went home, I said, I'm in a place, it's Diamante and crystals. And he said, how many people are there? I said, I can't see people, I can just feel energy. I'm home. And then I said to him, I have to go now, bye. And then I travelled. And what I've deduced is, if you've got trapped trauma, which obviously the grief that I've been holding on to with the passing of my mum and my animals, I've been holding on to that trauma. Once you release that trauma, you then move on to another room, shall we say, or another dimension. And again, I'll say it again, the most beautiful thing about it is you can't hide. Everything that I said came from spirit and love. And I understand why I feel so oppressed in this realm and why I am the way I am, is because I kept saying, I can feel the nature, I can feel the trees, the deers, I can feel all their pain. And I said, why do I feel responsible for the pain in this, in the physical realm? I'm not responsible. I don't want to feel this burden. And when 2020 hit, that was the biggest part of a big process that I had to go to, the realization of how evil this realm is. And I remember sitting here in my lodge, crying my eyes out at the nature, because so yeah, so it was a painful journey for me, but it wasn't a terror journey, which is Dan's obviously going to talk about his experiences. And I know some people have, because I remember I was in Amsterdam years ago with a friend, and she said, do you want to do some mushrooms because it's legal over there? And I said, you're joking. Said, I'll be the one that's jumping off a fucking roof, excuse my French, jumping off a roof and seeing all the spiders. Because that's how I envisaged a mushroom trip to be. But you do have to be spiritually ready to do it, I feel.
No, absolutely.
So just going back onto the Diamante thing. So a lot of people, when they do mushrooms, especially if they can see if they've been reincarnated, if they've had life cycles. So what was interesting about Jo is she never went to any past lives. She went straight home, and she broke down in tears when she got there, and she described it was a cave, and the cave was full of crystals, and her family were there, and she just started bursting out crying, like, I'm home, like, I'm actually home. This is my family. And she's like, I don't want to leave them. And I don't know what happened there, but she's having a conversation with them, and she's like, I have to go back. But I don't want to. This is where I belong. This is where I feel like I love everything. There's no love there. And then they said again, you have to go back. And again, she started feeling the condense and coming back into matter. And then again, she just shot off again, back up. She did not want to come back into a physical body. So what happens is some people will come in and out of consciousness because you can purge in between. So you keep coming in and out. So you can have like a 15-minute gap where you're back into your physical body and everything's normal again. And then a wave hits you and then you're back off again. Where Jo was literally refusing to come back into her body. She got to the stage where I don't want to be here. So I was making the connection through Dolores Cannon's books that she's actually one of the volunteers that's come here, which again is interesting because she does a YouTube. She tries to help people. She's very lonely. She's very much a hermit. She doesn't like being around people. She feels that she's a very strong empath, and it's very painful for her to, even the trees, animals, she feels the pain of everything. And she said that even in a trip, like, I can feel everything is connected to me, and I can feel the pain of the animals on the planet. I can feel the pain of the plants, and there's so much pain. And she was to the point where she was having like a proper breakdown. It was like hurting her so much. And this is where she obviously had left the place. And I've been to this place myself, and Sam has also been to this place, and we came to think it's Lemuria. Again, I've never researched Lemuria, but I've listened to Rudolf Steiner's stuff about Lemuria. And again, Lemuria is a place full of crystals, and the beings weren't actual physical bodies, they were astral. It was the Atlanteans that were physical. And it was the Atlanteans who first became egotistical. So they were the first civilization that Yaldabaoth corrupted. So they created ego. Obviously, people have heard of the Orion Wars, which was again between the Atlanteans and the Lemurians. And the Lemurians created the first flood, which wiped out both species back on this plane. But obviously, you've also got as above, so below. So in Lemuria, these places still exist. Hence why everything here feels familiar, is because everything is a copy from the upper aeon to the lower aeon. So we create the beauty in this world and also the pain in this world. So we're as much to blame as everything else. We've still got to take responsibility. But this is why we find this world that we see, nature and the animals, why we find it so familiar, even though it is a simulation, is because it's a copy of the real upper aeon where we come from. So I hope that explains a bit about what Jo's describing. Obviously, where she says, I've gone home. And this is where the connection, like, I've had past lives for some reason, Joe never went to any of the past lives. Sam's had past lives. Me and Sam have also had past lives together, quite a few. And funny enough, I've always been a warrior in my past lives. She's always been the healer, and it's even saying today I was a soldier. She's a nurse, but even in our past lives, I've had one in Scotland, where I was in a war scenario. I've been shot. I was then moved to a castle, and it was absolutely thunderstorms and raining, and I'm literally just starving. You're thinking I'm just trying to make it through the night, and I managed to get through it. And next day it was nice and bright, and then I heard this voice. This is on one of my trips saying, "You can get through anything. You've got to prep yourself for what's to come." And again, I've had another one where I was a Native American, and then I've had another one. I can't remember what the other one was. So I was a Native Indian tribe, and then I've had another one where me and Sam have both been Lemurians. So when we say Lemurians, we're like energy bodies with no faces. So we've actually seen each other, looked at each other with our eyes open, which is why I blindfolded Joe, because it can freak a lot of people out when they see what they actually look like. So people could be like a different species, like what we call aliens, in the upper aeon. So they might look like birds, they might look like reptilians, etc., or Palladians. So your actual true form is what you'll see. I always say my true form is like a long being with big long arms with no face, with like a big head, and it was literally no face at all. It's just pure energy. And again, me and Sam have seen each other like this, and I've even looked at the mirror and I actually freaked myself out looking at the mirror, going, "What the hell is that?" And it's actually me looking at my own reflection. So that's one of the important reasons why, as a facilitator, you've got to blindfold the person, because while I'm doing the facilitating, if Jo was to open her eyes and look at me, she will see my true form, which could freak her out. It's like, whoa, what the hell is this in the room? Which is again why people have bad experiences on mushrooms, because they don't understand this kind of stuff. And when they see if someone is a negative energy or a soulless being or a creature that they've never seen before, it can freak them out. And then especially when they're trying to hold on to them, like trying to calm them down, and they're thinking, "Why is this thing holding on to me and freaking me out?" It's quite a scary experience.
See, I've only had one bad one, but what I think would be a good idea is, if you've had any, to just explain what that experience was like. I've only had one.
What, the bad experiences?
Yeah.
So it depends. So Sam's had an experience where she's trapped in time. So it's called looping. So you know when you've watched films and the hell, it's literally just showing you the same thing over and over. Your life's just on repeat, living the same things, the same mistakes. So she got trapped in it. It's called a loop. So she couldn't get out. So she ended up having to come out of the trip completely, because it was getting too much, to the point where it was getting scary for her, because it was the same thing repeating over and over again. And the problem that she's got to do is she's got to break that cycle. You've got to face your darkest demons. And until you do that, and again, it's also a reflection of your physical. So if you're making the same mistakes in life, in the physical, it will show you that you keep going on repeat until you break that cycle. And that could be things like kids' behavior, or you keep falling for the wrong type of men or the wrong type of women, or you keep going down that wrong road. It'll keep showing you that. So like a prime example, person who's obsessed with lust and sex, like they'll just keep having sex with the same multiple things, like getting used, and it's literally hell, it's torment, and they'll just keep going through that whole ring of cycle. For me, my biggest issue is my ego. So I've had so many battles with my ego, it's unreal, which is not too bad now. Most of the time I've had trips, it's been an ego battle, and it's me facing me. And when I say battle, it's not like a battle of minds. It's literally like a physical war between us. And how this stage, it's like a computer game where I'm facing me, but as an enemy, I'm on one side and my shadow self's on the other side. It's literally just a constant battle until you realise that you can't defeat the other in. You've got to embrace the other in. And that's the mistake I always made, was when I had my ego battles, I was always trying to defeat the shadow me instead of embracing the shadow me as myself. And that's what the lessons I had to learn, was I have to become both the good and the bad and embrace both. So that was one of the lessons I had to learn.
You have to recognize that we're both. You have to recognize that there's both.
Yeah.
And you've got to discern that, so that you walk the middle ground of those both energies. Yeah.
Dan, how did that look to you? Because obviously I cried a lot. There was a lot of emotional pain. How, on an emotional level, like, did you see demons? How did it look to you?
It is how I ever perpetrated. Like I say, it was like sometimes it's like a game where I'm literally fighting another thing until I come to the end of the game and realize that thing I was fighting is actually me. And then it was always a case that one of us had to die, and instead of and every time I used to do the trip, it was like, why am I getting the same scenario every time? And it weren't until I realized that I had to embrace that I am also the light and the darkness, the good and the evil. It's the duality. And it was, like I say, I've also had my dad in my again, anyone you've had trauma with or you don't forgive, these energies will come in, and until you forgive these energies, these negative energies, and reconcile yourself and talk from the heart, these negative experiences do not go away until you've dealt with them.
Can I put it another way, Dan? Just
yeah.
in my perception, I haven't done the mushroom ceremony, but from my understanding is what we fixate or concentrate on in the physical within ourselves, that then opens the door for whatever entity to attach to. So if you fixate on anger, or you're angry at certain things because there's something that you're holding on to, that entity will hammer you like a bastard. It'll hammer you until you actually realize what you're doing in yourself, and then pull yourself away from that energy and go, I'm going to do something different now. And then as soon as you do that, everything just changes.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I've had my dad, not to go into too much details, but me and my dad never got on. He abused me from a kid, from a young age, and I never forgive him. Even when I got blown up and I was injured, my dad was dying of cancer at the same time at 51, and he would never give me the answers of why he did what he did to me. And even though in the esoteric, he still never gave me the answers of what I needed, but I then realized that regardless of the answers, it's his issues, not mine. And that's where I had to forgive him, because that burden was pulling a weight on me, and it was causing me the distress. Whatever he's done, he has to live with it. But I was holding on to that grudge myself, which was causing me the pain and the trauma. It's the same as like, if someone thinks that negative about themselves, they don't feel like they're beautiful or they're ugly. These are the things that you'll face. You'll face the ugly side of you until you embrace the ugliness and think, oh, you're not ugly, you're beautiful. And it's all about facing them perceptions of things. And like I say, it's scary, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. But again, if you misuse these kind of, because all they are keys, everything else is through yourself. You're the power that does it all. And this is what people don't realize, is mushrooms, just like ayahuasca and cactus, all they are keys into the esoteric. Once you've got the keys, it's all powered by you. So even if you want to learn, again, tribal people have done it to learn things, like if they wanted to fix ideas and stuff like that, they've used it to go into the esoteric, to time travel, see how things can improve in the future, because you can go backwards, you can go forwards, you can go, like I say, up and down. So they are quite a powerful tool if you use them. I got to the stage now where I'm a bit like a gatekeeper. I can actually travel through any dimensions I want and take control over it.
It's free will. I think you're explaining there free will in the spirit, that you can choose where you want to fixate on, 100%. And I'm I'm so amazed that I haven't done this experience, but listening to you, it's exactly what my understanding is. And that's what makes it resonate. And what you're saying is just sounds absolutely how I understand it to be.
I don't
If
think
I was anyone,
I don't think I chose where I went.
no, you don't.
No, so you don't choose where you go. It's like I explained earlier, like I had trauma with my mum passing, trauma with my cats passing, because I was holding on to that grief, and I couldn't move forward until I dealt with that grief, like, forgiveness from a mum or whatever it was. So, and I wasn't, you're not conscious of where you're going, you're just taken. That's the whole beautiful thing about the journeys. You are just taken. And like I said at the beginning of it, you're not conscious of what you're saying, you're just saying it. But I just have to add there, just for shits and giggles here, I did say dinner dad said I can feel the mushroom, and then I went, I won't feel the mushroom because I've taken a mushroom. I've even got a sense of humor in the esoteric. And Dan laughed.
What you're saying there is that your subconsciousness is not controlling it, but your higher consciousness, your spirit, is what's controlling it. Your spirit is what's telling you where you need to go to become more powerful. And this is the difference. So, because I've done so many of them, I've got to the point now where I am fully in control, because I trust my spirit's grown because of the experiences and the things I let go. Like, if people knew me 10 years ago, I was a completely different person. I was in a very dark place. I was surrounded by demons. And this is why I've had to face so many demons to get where I am now. And why I find what I study with the esoteric and the gnosis, why I find it so easy, is because I've had so many of these experiences, because I now understand it, because I know what the astral is, I know what the esoteric is, I know what the upper aeons is, I know what planetary is. So I can experience this more, and I don't panic. This is what a lot of people do, is when they feel like, oh, I'm getting sucked in through this dimension, they'll panic and they'll clench up, and it can be really painful when you clench up, because you're trying to anchor yourself into the physical, which is literally the lower realms going, you're not going up there, you're stuck here, you're belong to me. And it can be really powerful. People to the point where they're grinding the teeth, they're chewing the gums, because it's a bit like schizophrenia. So because you're letting go and realizing you're not what you think you are. It's a borderline schizophrenia thing, an awakening like that, because once you realize how powerful you are and what you are, it's hard then to come back, because you've got, again, like Dave mentioned, it's that perfect swing of the pendulum. Some people do it and then they come back and then they go totally Luciferian and go, I'm more spirit, I don't care about matter. But in this realm, we are both matter and spirit. So to live this reality, we need to have both. And then obviously that's why you see hippies who do a lot of magic mushrooms. They literally don't care about the physical body. They don't wash anymore. They got this whole idea that I'm a free spirit. Nothing else cares. Nothing else matters. I'm just a spirit. But that's where you go into the Luciferic side, and you've got to come back and balance. And this is why the mushrooms try and teach you is you've got to be in the balance. You've got to be in the center line, which is Christ, because otherwise you go into there, you're aligning with something else. And it's quite a hard thing.
What you've just said there, Dan, is brought one thing that is, for a lot of people, I think, is very, very difficult to do. And you've actually put it, whether you realize it or not, is to forgive yourself, because you have been deceived along the way, that you didn't understand this until you see it. And when you see it, the hardest thing for most people to do is to actually forgive themselves. And that's exactly what you need to do. And that actually makes so much sense in the way you put it, whether you realize you said it, but that is the key. Forgive yourself.
Yeah. It's like scary the other side as well, because obviously in this realm, a lot of us have got kids, we've got family. So we believe that they are our children and they are our family, but their souls could be older than your soul.
Yeah.
And they've only come into this reality and chosen you as parents to learn off you. And again, that's another hard pill for people to swallow. Your actual real family could be someone you've never met in this realm. And that's another thing, which is quite a scary thought to some people, and to let go of it, thinking, what do you mean? Because like Joe found that when she went to Plamora, her family was still there. And the fact that Chris, who was her ex, actually came into her consciousness, again shows that he's also part of her soul family, of where she comes from. So, because only your soul family can tap in to different consciousness, because you're all connected, which is another. So when people talk about collective consciousness, it's not so much that everyone's connected. It's your soul tribe, which could be different for everyone. You're all connected on the same wavelength. So that's where people find that, oh, we're on the same frequency. We've got very similarities. I feel a connection to that person. That's because in the upper realms, you probably belong to that family or that species of whatever it is. Again, that's another scary thought for people. So when people go there and they go, oh, hang on, I've got kids, I've got a mum, I've got a dad, and then they go, well, that's just the physical realm.
That's
They're not
exactly,
your true.
Yeah, it's the confusion of the physical realm where people are only looking at it from the physical, and that's the deception that they and I think it's been deliberately deceived them, that they are only physical. And as soon as you realize that you aren't, then you become the guardian to your child's soul, that etc. You become the guardian, and you realize it as that. It's beautiful.
Because you got to remember as well that some of your children could have chose you to help you on your soul journey, that they realize that you've been stuck in reincarnation for so long that they've come in to help you, to pull you out of the reincarnation. So they're the lessons that you learn. For those that don't have no attachment to kids, they don't want kids, that's because they're really newer souls, a lot of them. And because they come into this realm not to have kids, because they know what this realm is. It's just a feeding zone. So they've literally, hence why they've got no plans to meet people or have a relationship and have kids, is because they're not here for that purpose. Their purpose is to help raise people's consciousness and align with it. Even though when you come into this realm, you come in with amnesia, you forget your whole purpose. And this is what the beautiful thing is about psychedelics and obviously people do meditation, is you get to access your Akashic records, which is memories. So memories are what trigger or all from your upper aeon.
So would you say the Akashic records is the Christ consciousness?
No, your Christ consciousness is just a consciousness, but when you start elevating, you get access to the Akashic records. So again, you can get access through meditation to your Akashic records. All it is memories. So the more you raise your vibration, this is like what even watching like a movie or reading a book, your intuition will literally click up and go, I remember that. Why do I remember this like page or remember this
Gnosis,
sentence?
the gnosis, remembering.
Why does this intuition feel like something? Or they see a picture and they go, oh, why does that look like home? Like, that's not my home. Why does it look like home? That's you accessing into your Akashic records. It's just little memory dumps, and it's all around the ether. And again, this is what people don't understand. You've got access to it. It's just like even with the iPhone, they tell you now it's in your face. Like all your data, everything you store is in the cloud. It's exactly the same with the Akashic records. All your memories are in the cloud. It's in the ether.
Depends on which realm you're looking at your truth from. So yeah, if you want to look at the iCloud, well then you're in the physicality. But if you're thinking on the esoteric, then 100% the Akashic. Got that.
Because that's all they're doing with technology, is they're trying to
mimic
everything from the upper into the technological age, even with this whole transgender.
The way I verbalize it is basically using what we've got as powerful beings, and they're just dumping it into technology, and they're stripping us away of what we can do, like the phone. Me and Chris were having a conversation about this months ago about the phone. We were talking about like our phone numbers, and we got onto like, God, isn't it amazing how you can actually talk to somebody in Australia? And then we were like, oh my God, that's telepathy. They're using our skill of telepathy. They just dumped it into a phone. Because how can you speak to somebody in Australia? And it was just like, and our phone numbers are our codes. So it's, And I wrote a blog in it, The Hijacking of Earth, a few nights ago. They are basically, and me and Dan have had these conversations, they are basically where we are from, they are bringing it into this is my belief, they are bringing it into this satanic realm, and they're just mimicking what's up there, bringing it here so that they've got full control.
Absolutely, it's inversion.
Yeah, so clever bastards, but there you go. Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions?
Yeah,
Any
I have. I've probably asked you this, but I've obviously forgotten. So when I met my mum and my cats, does that mean that was just that part of my healing journey, or does that mean that they are part of my soul family?
That's part of your healing journey. The cats and everything, the energies is just part of you. You're dealing with them traumas. Obviously, their energies they were in the upper aeon. So, like I say, your mum was obviously awake at the time, and that's why she's so many similarities with you. I don't want to go to because it's personal to you. I don't really want to talk about it for everybody else, but there's very similarities between you and your mum. So it's like you're like a reincarnation of your mum kind of thing with the same issues, but now you're dealing with them issues that your mum never dealt with, kind of thing, to help that energy growth. But they were traumas that you needed to face, to heal, to take back into the physical to help you progress.
And one thing that Dan helped me with, because I was elated that I'd met my mum's energy, and I was like, wow, she's not being reincarnated. That's amazing. But as Dan said, we do keep some of our spirit.
Yeah.
Some of our spirit stays back basically in the upper. So not all of us come. Dan, you can expand on it, but I just wanted to bring that up for people who've lost people, who are worried that they've been reincarnated into this realm, because who wants our loved ones to come back here? But anyway, go on, Dan.
So what people talk about with, especially with the quantum physics side, is they talk about the multiverse and like you've got parallel lives. It's kind of true and not true, but we leave a fragment of ourselves in the upper aeon. So it's like leaving an energy, but we're still attached to it, hence what they call the silver cord. So we've still got our true selves up in the upper, and our silver cord attaches into the physical. So this is where they're trying to disconnect that silver cord with the transhuman agenda, which is disconnecting us from spirit, which is our true self. So if they do that, that fractal then comes back into this realm. So they've fully got you. But there's no chance that you'll ever be able to escape back into Fomora. And that's the whole point of this transhumanism, is putting us into machines, further into matter. So it's making us fall further, which is crystallizing us. So we then become what we already are now. So the Jews call us golems, goyim, dicks. Or in the Bible, they call it dust. We're coming to physical matter, where they're going to be falling further into matter, which is obviously machine, which is then more disconnected from spirit and source. Because once you go into machine, they can then fully control your mind. Once they can control your mind, they can control your body, they can control your soul. And that's where everything stops. So that's what the whole big agenda is they've got to the stage where we're physical beings, we're sinners. The next step of evolution for them is to put us further into machine, so then we'll constantly be harvested. And again, it's down to free will. People talk about the age of technology. You've got people going to go back to where we came from, and you're going to have people going into the age of technology, which is the age of Ahriman. For those who don't understand who Ahriman is, he is the new ruler of this realm. So it is Lucifer at the minute, which is all about ego and pride. Ego and pride is going to be gone. It's all going to be into Ahriman, which is destruction and chaos, which is all about the technological world. And he is the rebirth. So he is the adversary to Christ. So if we split up from Christ, those who are aligned with Christ consciousness will go. Those who aren't are going to be stuck into this world of chaos and destruction and falling further to matter, not having this biological relationship with nature and animals. You have no care for it. They'll just destroy everything that's biological in this world, because all they care about is machine.
Yeah, they want to disconnect us from spirit. That's exactly what it is. Disconnect us from our recognition of who we are. This brings me back to something that I've been pondering for a long time, and I know Dan and I have had this discussion about what differentiated between people that fell for the 2020 hoax and those that didn't. And it was the people that were listening to spirit, if that makes it, or remembering.
So everyone's here on this group has got to realize that what made them not take the jab? That is their spirit, that's their intuition that spoke inside of them going, do not do that. And that is your guide. And people have lost that connection, even though we've still got it, people are starting to lose that connection, that intuition. Like, again, people take a path and they go, I'm not going to go down that path today. And that's your spirit guiding a little second, and then something happens like a car crash or stuff like that.
We've got
Again,
40
that is your
seconds
spirit,
left,
right?
Dan. 40 seconds. I don't want to cut in, but we'll get cut off.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop recording, otherwise I'll lose the recording.
Okay,
Are we
and then
coming
we'll come back in.
Yeah.
End recording, and then I'll leave, and then
Right.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, as much as they sound like the good thing, mushrooms, they are also dangerous. And again, this is why I don't like the fact that people are trying to legalize it, because you've got a lot of people in experience trying to jump on this craze because they've watched a Joe Rogan podcast and they think they're going to see all these colors like my background here and on the screen, and they're just going to have this amazing experience. But again, it's a lot of the stuff is you've got to have no impurities, no toxins in your body. You've not got to mix things like alcohol, because like people aren't aware, alcohol is a demon. It's an entity, hence why it takes over you, and that's why high percentage of alcohol is called spirits, because again, it's very negative vibration. So you don't want them energies in. And again, a lot of people as well who've jumped onto the mushroom craze are started doing these mushroom retreats in groups. Again, if you're in a group, you're getting the whole group's energies. So if they've got bad energies against them, and they've got their own traumas, you're bringing all that bad energies and them traumas into one room, which can be a lot for a person to handle. So again, this is why it's facilitators. It's important, because there's so many out there at the minute that are all jumping on because there's a lot of money to be made. I don't charge, but people who do these things, they're charging. You're talking $3 to $4 grand for these retreats.
I mean, on top of that, Dan, I mean, I think a lot of people are coming from it because they have no inclination to even understand what's going on in the esoteric or the spirit realm.
No.
And they're doing it from the physical point of view, and they are going to, it can send you insane. I'm 100% sure that it can send you insane, because you see things that you can't forget and you don't understand it. And somebody's just posted exactly why they're trying to legalize it now. They don't, that's exactly why.
Yeah, because it'll bring you drug-induced psychosis, because if that person then completely activates, because it's the same as a Kundalini awakening. People, again, wonder why Kundalini is so dangerous. Because if your chakras are blocked, or there's entities on your chakras, and you do a Kundalini awakening, it's only going to go up so far. And then that energy then is trapped like a fizzy bottle, and it's just going to burst out, which is then causing a more feeding frenzy for these entities. And again, if your mindset's not ready, this is where you get borderline schizophrenia, because if you can't switch that off and you're then seeing this all the time, like seeing the esoteric, hearing the voices, starting getting back your psychic abilities, like that's a lot for a person to take. And it's a scary thought if they're not ready. This is why people like Rudolf Steiner and all these secret societies don't teach people if they're not ready. You've got to go to these secret societies. They won't approach you unless you're ready. And this is the mistake that people think about the occult, and they think all the occults are bad. They're not bad. It's just you've got to turn into them when you're ready in that spiritual alignment, and then they're ready to teach you. And this is why they have things called degrees at each level of learning. Obviously, not all the occults are bad, and not all the occults are good. You have got secret societies that know about the esoteric and try and manipulate it. It's just like an individual person. If he realizes how powerful he is, he can then manipulate that power.
It's
It's
free
all
will
down to
again,
the
eh?
role. Yeah,
Free
it's all
will.
down to, yeah, it's their individual consciousness is how they want to use it. So that's again like as much as they are good, they're also very dangerous. So like I say, if people are interested in doing stuff like that, then I would find a facilitator close by who knows what they're doing and ask them as many questions. That is the biggest thing, is ask them as much questions, information, because you're trusting this person with the keys to give you to go into these realms. And if you're not ready or you're not aligned to it, then it can cause chaos and mayhem.
Yeah,
I
that
just want
brings
to
me
add
on
to that. Dan does have something that can pull you out, because it was a stage. I want to touch back on when he was talking about the pain. I start to feel pain, and I said to you, Dan, didn't I? I'm feeling all this pain around my jaw and my neck. And at that point, I was very close to asking Dan to pull me out, because no feel pain. That's when the fear kicked in with me, when I started to feel pain.
Animita Mascara, which is another mushroom, and again, it's another mushroom that can get you into the psychotic state. Is a mushroom that can pull you out of a psychedelic trip. So Sam and Mrs. is on when she was in a looping, and she was trapped in that loop, and it was constantly going over. She actually tried this because we read about it, but we didn't even know at the time if it would work, and it literally pulls you out of that trip straight away, and because you can get lost, like I say, into a psychedelic trip, which is then your psychosis, because your brain's fully activated and it won't switch off, which is dangerous. So like I say, some people, especially schizophrenics, that's if you look at their brain pattern on an MRI scan, it's very similar to a person on psychedelics. It's firing off and all cylinders, all your brain receptors are firing off. So a person who's schizophrenic are actually looking at majority of the time into the esoteric. So
I keep getting just something that I just what I need to say is, don't do this out of curiosity. Do this when there's a lot of people that'll go, oh, I just want to try it. You're not ready. You've got to understand it, I think.
Yeah, Deb's, it was Anamita. I'm just answering Deb's question. Yeah, it was Anamita that pulled her out. So Anamita mushroom is a very grounding mushroom. It comes from the heart. That's why they call it the love mushroom. Hence why it's got a lot of healing benefits, and it's different to a psychedelic trip when you go on an Anamita trip, because it's a mushroom that belongs in this realm. Everything you take with the Anamita is you'll talk to your ancestors, you do lucid dreaming. It's a different kind of trip. But the Anamita is that powerful, is like I say, it counteracts the psilocybin. So no matter how much psilocybin you've taken, as soon as you take Anamita, it cuts out the psilocybin from your system.
I don't know about you, Dan, as well. I just want to say that the image that Dan's got behind him, I didn't have that kind of experience. I didn't see all these colours. The colours that I saw were very dull down, apart from when I got to the house in Bolton, which was all blues, and I'd actually had a dream about the house in Bolton, which was like an igloo. That's the only way I can describe it. Not long prior to me having my trip. So again, I was taken back there. Dan, did you have, and anyone else, Sam, Dwayne, did you see those kinds of colours?
You do at the beginning. So me and Sam, we've gone into past lives. So it's like watching a movie. I've had Sam next to me, and I've watched her past life faces change, and her and everything change in front of me. It's all different. Like she's been an old woman with grey hair, and it is quite freaky to look at when you're there doing it. And like I said, you see all the different people that she's been in her reincarnations. And when you have your past life experiences, it's literally like watching telly for a movie. But then you look at yourself, you're the avatar in the movie, kind of thing.
So could you touch on your twin flame journey with Sam, between you and Sam, to the experience, because that's something I've never heard of, that journey together, which must be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, we've
absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, we've done it a few times. We've actually had the same experience. The only one we've not had is, I think Sam could talk to you about, where she was Mary Queen of Scots, and she's seen her like literally getting beheaded. She's seen being locked away in a dungeon with ginger ale, didn't you, Sam? She didn't want to tell me at the time because she thought I'd freak out. But yeah, when we've done it, we've been all sorts of locations, and then we've also, it's weird because when we've touched each other, we've morphed into one being, and that's when we felt completed, that we were one.
Oh, have you seen the Lawnmower Man? That happens in the Lawnmower Man when he takes that woman in, and they go into the AI, shall we say? They morph into one being.
Yeah, that's what happened to me and Sam.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I think with the, you know, you start talking about the visuals like behind Dan. I think another reason why you're blindfolded is so that you're not going to focus on the visuals, because that's very in this realm, that's very here and now. So those people that do mushrooms for partying, going out, you know, like, they are going to get that high visual experience because that is what they want from it. If you're closing your eyes and you're focusing on the internal, then you're going to go deeper and you're not going to see, it's not going to be visual as the picture behind Dan, because you're going somewhere totally different than that. That is purely sort of on the surface, if you will, of the experience. So I have had experiences where I have had mega visuals, but I've been sat in my living room with music on, you know, I'm in my surroundings, I'm awake, I've got lots of external stimuli, so you're going to get a lot of visuals going on. But when you cover your eyes, when you close your eyes and you go into that psychedelic experience like that, then you're going to go somewhere different, you're going to go somewhere further, and you're not going to have that same visual experience. You don't need it.
Yeah, I like that. That's the intent. That's the intent behind it. So
yeah, so you get out of it what you want out of it, basically. If your intent is to go deeper, is to go to that higher level, then you'll go there, but you need to sort of close off to everything that's here in this realm, here now, and you'll go there. But if you want that, you know, if you want all the bright colours and the pixelated vision, and you know, you want that, you're going to get that if that's what you're wanting out of it.
I did experience once the Dwayne, once the blindfold was taken off, when I finally came back into my body, and my God, did I need to pee. And I wasn't sure I could get up because everything felt like jelly underneath me. My legs were like jelly. And it was exactly that. All your visuals, like I looked at the cat, I looked at Dan, and they were like vibrating. And after Dan had gone, I was still having some effects, and I was seeing faces in trees, in the clouds, everything. And that reminded me, I actually referenced the film Poltergeist in my trip, because I could see all these trapped souls in the trees. And when the trip was starting to wear off, I believe I was seeing the trapped souls in the physical, because of course everything's heightened. I just saw all these faces in pain, and it just reminded me of that film Poltergeist. But anyway, sorry, Dwayne, go on. I just wanted to, before I forgot. He's stuffing his face.
No, that's all right. So yeah, like as Sam was just saying, I've done them more times than I care to remember, like tons. And that is literally the only level of experience that I've ever had. Purely because I never knew that I could navigate with them. Because I've just literally...
So that's what you wanted out of it, Dwayne, isn't it, at the time?
Yeah, and I just think, like, no one... Because I just literally started doing them for my own reason, like, just someone recommended them, and after that first time I was just like, these are fucking epic. You know, done them tons
behind
of
it, mate. It's the intent behind it. You went from it from a trip high type of scenario, not rather than I want to experience my inner spirit.
It was like pure energy, you know, because it is like literally, and you do see it's everything in frequency form. It's hard to explain. Everything comes to life. So
it really does. Yeah, I was sat on the loo and the shower was all psychedelic, and of course my hand was like, I was loving it. Even like the after effects, once I came out of it, I was still loving the experience of everything being psychedelic and everything being in shapes and everything moving. And I loved it.
What I'm dying to do now is actually do them in a different kind of setting, where, because like I said, for the last sort of few years that I've been doing them, I've always been at home. The kids have been here, been asleep and everything. And the last time I did them, me and Jess did psychedelics for the first time. And that was, like sharing the experience with Jess when we've been together for 15 years that was immense. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, just the whole 5 odd hours was like, fucking hell, yeah. It was incredible, fucking incredible, an experience I've never had. But yeah, I definitely want to do them in a setting where I can navigate 100% and go further. Definitely.
I've been to Source. One of the questions what I usually do, I plan to go and ask questions, and one of the questions I asked myself was, "What am I?" And it was a big mistake because I literally went all the way to Source, and I was Source as a fact because I'm a fractal of Source.
Fractal, 100%.
And and I realized that I had all these powers and all these abilities, and the scary thing was I was alone in darkness. So
you won.
It was literally, it was a scary thought, because what's the point of having all these powers and all these abilities, but yet you're lonely out there? And
but when you go back to basics, everything starts with self.
Yeah. So that's what the scary thing is. You've got to be prepared, again, what questions you want to ask and where you want to go to. And it's, again, for all your mind. And like I say, for me, that was a scary experience, because when you realize that you are just the infinite being and that you're on your own, you're lonely, when you've come from a family, you've got kids, and to have that experience going. And this is, again, why I don't do DMT. So for those who don't know what DMT is what we naturally produce, is which what causes the psychedelic experience. But DMT works in a very quick way. So instead of going through the different realms and the planes, is you go straight to source. And this is why people have different experiences in DMT, is because they go straight to the beginning of what they are, and they miss out all the learning, the teaching, the trauma and experience. And again, to me, that's why it's pointless doing DMT, because you're not achieving anything. You're just going from A to point B, instead of the actual path. Being on the path, you're literally teleporting from A to B, instead of going on the gradual road.
You're cheating, aren't you?
It's not a case of cheating, but you don't achieve anything. You're literally just going from point A to point B.
Do you not think it comes down to, I'm going to say this again, the intent behind the trip? If you're coming from I want to get high, then you can go and do all of these things and you're going to experience something else, but you don't realize that you are potentially opening yourself to these entities around us that can take hold of you, and that's exactly what they want. And this is where I say, if somebody does this mushroom ceremony out of curiosity rather than understanding of what you're actually doing, you can open yourself to a minefield of trouble, absolute minefield of trouble.
Yeah. You can do the same with meditation.
Yeah.
Once people build up a tolerance of meditation, and then they activate, obviously, the pineal, it's exactly the same experience. And a lot of people get that block when they start activating the pineal, because it does freak them out. That they start to feel the heart racing, they start to feel hot, they start to see colours, and the third eye starts opening. And that's all it is with psychedelics, is your third eye starts opening, which sees into the esoteric. And like I say, so as much as psychedelics are bad, so's meditation, so's yoga, you have to have your mindset right to be on them journeys. So people who are doing meditation because they think, oh, it's all about manifestation. Again, you're doing it for the wrong reasons if you do, because all it is keys. Once you get into them, then it becomes a scary realization, especially if you're not ready for it. And you only know yourself if you're ready to experience these experiences, which obviously I weren't. I've never done any hardcore drugs like people have done. And the thing is, I was very skeptical about mushrooms, but it was mushrooms that actually saved me from being on pharmaceuticals, being on depression, having PTSD. Like, I don't take anything now.
It made you, can I safely say it made you realize who you truly are?
You were, oh yeah, 100%. I still, even now, if I went, I don't do mushrooms often. Like, I think my last trip was last year, because they're not a nice, like, as much as people think they're a nice, pleasant high and everything, they're not. They're physically exhausting. Like, even though it's 5 hours, you could be in there for thousands of years, in your mind, because time doesn't exist in the upper aeons; it only exists in the lower. The Time Lord is Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth creates time. So even though it's 5 hours here, you could be lost in your own head for thousands of years. And like I say, it's not a pleasant thing. Like, and again, if your chakras aren't fully activated, you've got blockages and you've got entities attached to you, because people again don't realize entities are attached to us just by our emotions, our actions, day-to-day life. You can't cleanse your chakras every day. And this is what people got to realize, that these things are around us, just because we can't see them. I think our brain or our eyesight literally sees 0.3% of light and energy. So the rest of that is what's going on. We don't actually see until you start activating your third eye. And then when you activate your third eye, it's wow, what everything is. Like, I've seen the room as a construct, is in numbers. Like, everything was made of the number 3, like the table, the chairs. Like Dwayne says, you see the frequency, you see energy. You're on passage through solids.
That's the artificial construct.
Yeah. You see it for what it is. Like, you're on passage through solids, and it's mind blowing. You can move through walls, and I've seen my next door neighbour's house, gone outside, and the next door neighbour's house has been on, like, it's another portal. It looks like hell because it's on fire. Like, me and Sam have said, like, we think he's a soulless being, and like, we look over to his house, and his house is literally on fire, like it's another portal. I go into my bathroom downstairs, I know that's another dimension. Again, you start seeing these wormholes in normal reality, and it is quite baffling.
That was what that bad trip was for me. Yeah, was I was living on my own at the time. It weren't long after I left home. Like, I was like 16, and me and my mate done them together, and then he put me in a bad mood and decided to go home just as we was coming up for them. And I spent the whole night in my hotel room where I was living on my own, like, just come up, and the whole room, it was on fire, melting, like literally being in the middle of a giant melting candle. And it was, oh mate, I'll never forget it, I don't think.
Well, that's good that you won't forget it, because now you realize who you are, that if you do that, you understand. Well, you understand it now, but back then you probably didn't understand it.
No, didn't have a clue, mate.
That's the curiosity. That's the curiosity. I'm going to do it out of curiosity, and it's a bad thing, man. It's a bad thing.
It freaked me out that much that I actually went downstairs and banged on the manager's door at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she come to the door with a knife.
And what did you say to her, Dave? Did you say my room's on fire? What did you say to her?
What I actually said to her when she come to the door, I told her my drink had been spiked down a pub. I've been down a pub that evening, and someone spiked my drink. And in the morning, she actually knew. She was like, "You just went out and got off your nut, didn't you?" And I was like, "I'm so sorry."
Yeah, no, not good. Not good.
And that's another great thing as well, is you are still aware, even though you're high. I mean, okay, mine and Dwayne's experiences were very, very different.
Mega, yeah.
Yeah, but Dwayne was still aware enough to go and knock on someone's door and say, "I've been spiked." It's not like being drunk where you slurring your words and, you know,
No, I was totally aware of what was
yeah.
going on. Like, I just didn't enjoy the, you know what I mean? It was just like, get me out of it.
Yeah,
Again,
but
that's
from that
a point.
perspective, can you see what you opened yourself up to, Dwayne?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. That brings me on to my point of why, again, the facilitator is important, because you're leaving your body. I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Insidious, the horror movie. So the little kid can astral plane, and you've got negative beings trying to take over. It's the same with alcohol. If you drink so much alcohol to the point where you poisoned yourself, your spirit doesn't want to be in your body anymore because it's intoxicated. So you black out. And this is where lower negative beings then come into the body and start doing things to your body. Same with like, so you do things that you would never normally do, like hurting yourself and stupid acts, because the lower negative being has took possession. So people got to remember as well is possession is not like a physical thing. It's the possession of the mind. That's how they do it. So again, why a facilitator is important is because once you've left your body is then vulnerable because your spirit has left it. It's now experiencing the astral, or it's up in the upper aeons. That physical body then is left for other beings then to attach itself to and take over. So again, what a facilitator does is protects the body at the same time, cleanses it, because you don't want another entity coming into that body. And this is where, again, with people who've had bad trips, they've jumped off buildings and so forth, and they've done things to harm you, because when you've been in mushrooms, your body actually, you can't physically feel your body.
yeah.
So you have got no control of moving your body in the spirit because you're out of it. So whatever's in your body, moving your body around, is another entity.
Yes, Deb.
Morning, everybody. This is fascinating. I'm loving it. Thanks, Dan. So we've got some psilocybin, Ian and I, and we're talking about doing a journey together. And I said, and I'm not a facilitator, but of course I do. As you know, I do body work and clear.
Yeah.
You know, I can balance chakras, yada yada yada. Am I going to be okay to facilitate for Ian and vice versa with him?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
If
not do it together, not do the trip together.
If you can, if you don't want to go deep, it's a completely different experience. So if you just want to experience obviously the visuals and the physicals, then you can do it together. But if you want to both go deep at the same time, you've got to be aware of what you're leaving your body to. And if one person experiences a bad trip, you're not in the position to help them get out.
So what if
so
say for example, if I'm supporting Ian and he has a bad trip, am I just reassuring or offering him?
What you do is you're also channeling your energy. So obviously you know how to channel energy, don't you? Yeah. So obviously you can then talk. So you can talk into your subconsciousness just like you do with hypnosis. So you know when people in deep hypnosis and you're talking to the higher self and subconsciousness. So he will hear your voice from the other side.
Okay.
It will sound like an echo to him.
Right. Okay.
So you can put yourself, your consciousness into them, and then if they start having a bad experience, it's all about that reassurance. You can also sage. You can also obviously force your energy, guide them, talk to source about telling them like whatever it is, release that energy. It's exactly the same as if you're doing hypnosis and facilitating
it. Great.
Again, if it gets too bad, then obviously you know yourself with Anamita, which you can get hold of. It's literally just about 1 gram of Anamita, and it will pull them straight out. They'll have no visuals left after that. It's the same with, you can't microdose psilocybin and microdose Anamita at the same time, because the Anamita will cancel it out. So you can either microdose of Anamita or you microdose of psilocybin. You can't do them both at the same time. It's the same with cannabis and Anamita. If you take cannabis and Anamita, you can't go into a hallucinogenic state. The cannabis stops you from doing that because cannabis is a 4D element, so it keeps you in time and space. where Animeta psychedelics is obviously 5D plus in consciousness. So you can go to the different dimensions. That's why when you're stoned, you feel more grounded, you feel in the now, where there you're no longer in the now. So that's why they call like cannabis, it's a very 4D
Okay,
drug.
that's really interesting, that, Dan. So we're actually staying with a friend now, and she is I call her the cannabis queen, and she supports a lot of people, but she's also coming on to the to Amanita. She's so, and I know that she takes her CBD oil every day. So to not do any Amanita with CBD then?
No, it will just
Right,
counteract
okay.
it because it's a 4D element, and then
Right,
you're taking a 5D plus. It counteracts each other out.
right, brilliant. Thanks
Can
so
I-
much. This is fascinating. So good. And I was just having a little bit of a chat with Joe, talking about faces. When I used to, again, I want to come back to meditation, but I used to meditate a lot, and I used to see thousands of faces, like all faces, and they were all black and white, and the biggest one was a wolf. But South American lions, and then like Joe just mentioned about a lion, and I used to see a lion, and the lion is not depicted as a good thing. Is that right?
Good thing, no, it's demiurge.
Oh God.
A lot of people see that when they have the near-death experiences after the white light. A lot of near-death experience, because near-death experiences again, it's hitting your psychedelic state.
Yeah.
So when they've gone past the white light, they've usually come face to face with the demiurge as a snake body with a lion's head, or some people see it as a machine with a lion's head. Like I said, there's
What's the new altar bath symbol? Isn't it the beast with the 7 heads? And what heads are they?
they're the 7 sins. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
what the heads are lions, aren't they?
No,
Lions.
are they lions? Yeah, they are.
Oh, bugger.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks for that.
But people get mistaken as well with malevolent and benevolent beings. So when people see angels in human form,
They can be both.
That's deceivers. Like angels are not angelic looking like humanoids. Angels look like weird spheres things and with eyes everywhere. Because even the Bible, they tell you why they say, "Do not fear," when they talk to them. Do not fear us, because your mind can't digest what an angel looks like, but a demon is a deceiver. So they take on a human looking form, which is why they have human bodies with wings. So they're usually demons that you're dealing with, dark energies, because they're very much deceivers. There is quite a lot of, like, if you look at Ezekiel, what he said look like machines. These are what benevolent beings look like. They look like a kind of sphere, machine kind of thing, with like different heads and wings coming out of these spheres. And again, it's hard to, when you've been in so many things, you can start understanding. It's why facilitate is good, because when someone comes up to one of these beings, you can literally tell them to ignore them, go past it, and they won't bother you once you've realised that. You can just literally go past them, because there is a lot of dark entities in there, like jesters, your machine elves, that are quite tricksters.
Yes, Deb.
I'd never heard of that, machine elves, until Joe's explained her journey. I'd never heard of that.
I mean, Terence McKenna just talks a lot about machine elves.
Oh, okay.
Again, there's a lot of misconceptions. People think they're benevolent beings and talk to them quite frequently. And what, again, UFO people who think they've been abducted, they call the greys. These are machine elves. So your little grey aliens are machine elves. Your fairies, your brownies are actually tricksters in the esoteric. They're not good. They're very much deceivers, little tricksters. And like I said, you usually find a lot of group of them, and they'll be in your face and they'll be laughing and they'll be like pulling you to come, and like they'll look like you're in a spaceship, like a space station kind of thing.
I like to picture them
And
as
just going back to
energy
the
walkers.
angel. Oh, sorry, Dave.
So I'd like to picture them or let's call them the divine creators, sent archangels, angels, spirit guides, whatever you want to see. I see them as energies because that's exactly what we are, rather than a physicality.
Yeah, that's what another thing that I've noticed is when you're communicating, anything that's speaking English to you is not benevolent. Benevolent things talk to you in light energy, in pulses,
Intuition.
in frequency. Yeah, and it's your spirit that recognizes when it's speaking to you. If something's speaking to you in English, then you know it's the devil's tongue. Like they say, English is the devil's tongue. It's language is like what is Lucifer is the archangel of music and frequency. So he speaks to you in languages.
So is that why, Dan? Is that why English is the universal language that they created then? So
English was created with, I think, with 3 different languages, weren't it? German, French, I can't remember the other.
was it
Latin.
Spanish?
I know it was a mold of 3 of them. But again, it's not the true language. So if anything's speaking to you in English, then you know that's not right.
Well, what about any language? Because this is a physical realm. And just like Joe intimated that she spoke to these energy beings, but it wasn't her intuition, her knowing was,
it was, it's coming from the heart. If it resonates with the heart and your spirit, then your spirit will understand it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
I was just going to say something actually. So when you're at source and you're speaking and asking questions that you want to know, you're not physically speaking, and you're not. What happens? Well, especially for me, I've spent hours and hours with source asking so many questions. When you come out of that trip, if you haven't had a facilitator there to prompt you, to speak to you, to record it, to write things down, you as a physical human in this realm don't necessarily remember those questions, and you don't remember the answers. And that was one very frustrating thing that I felt on the first few occasions, was that I spent so long speaking to source.
Can I just cut it? We've got less than 1 minute. Can Joe stop recording, and then we'll come straight back in, Joe, because otherwise you're going to lose it.
I've got to go, guys.
Cheers, Sue. Love you lots.
Bye.
Bye.
Ready?
Sam, please carry on.
Yeah, so what I was saying was, so when you're at source and you're asking the questions, and you're getting them answers, and you're getting them answers when you come out of your trip, when you come back to this realm, the most frustrating thing is that you don't remember. You know that you've had the answers, you know that something's different inside, but you might remember an odd thing here and there, but when you've spent so long, like Dan said before about, your trip lasts normally around 4 to 5 hours, and actually you can spend days, weeks, years there because it's not of this time. The most frustrating thing is that you can't remember them. So having a facilitator there to prompt you and guide you and say, what are you asking? Having that sort of communication to this realm is really, I think it makes the experience more real for us now, because you start to remember those things. Whereas I know that I've spent hours asking questions and I don't remember a thing. I just remember that I asked things and I got the answers that I wanted, but I don't know what they were. And I know I felt different, and I know I felt more clear, and I understood things that I didn't know why I understood them, but I knew I did. So if you want the full experience, and I think that's my point, is that a facilitator can help with remembering them questions, remembering the answers, remembering sort of the experience to a bit more full.
And I think recording it as well, because I've listened to my experience 3 times now because I don't want to forget what I experienced. So definitely recording it is beneficial, 100%.
I definitely come on board with that, because even though I haven't done the ceremony, at night, before I go to sleep and I'm communing with Source Creator, and I ask certain questions, I normally get sometime in my sleep I'll have a dream or whatever. I don't know what it is, but then I never write them down, and I know I should write this down, and I bloody don't. And then I wake up in the morning going, I don't know what I've just said.
And there's nothing more frustrating than that, because you know that you've done it, and you know that you got the answer that you wanted, but actually remembering that answer. And I have had it where months down the line, so it will pop in my head,
Yeah.
or a little memory of it will pop in my head, and the answer is there, but it's just taken all that time for it to come back. So that is definitely a good reason, especially for me, to have someone there to sort of, guide you and record it for you, and so that you've got that level of understanding when you're sort of back in this reality.
Yeah, no,
I
that
did.
just makes
I
so
did.
much
Well,
sense.
about a week after my trip, I was dreaming and I was making connections in my dreams. But could I remember those connections that I'd made in my dreams when I woke up?
You won't.
No. And I was so
Yeah.
frustrated. I was
And
like,
you'll
"Oh."
do that for months and months, because you are still processing all that
Yeah.
information. It is there somewhere, but it's just you processing it. It might not all come back, but mine certainly hasn't. Like Dan's already told you, I've been stuck in a time loop. I spent years and years on a trip, and I asked a lot of questions. So it is there. The information is there, but it takes
100%.
time.
Now, going back to what Joe said, 100%, but because we are so powerful in who we are, remember that if you are attempting to remember, you will manifest that to come to you, so you do remember. That's the way I see it. So something will come to you and it'll just trigger that memory, and you'll go, oh, that's what it was. I'm fully on board with that.
Or even something you've learned from, like, or you've asked a question about something, and in your day-to-day life now, it was associated to that'll trigger, and then your decisions will be different.
Yeah.
You'll make a different choice because you've learned that lesson and you've understood.
Sam, so many things that I learned 3 years ago that I dismissed as, yeah, no, not really. And 3 years later, I go, bloody hell, that's why I needed to know that, because now everything just falls into place and you go, oh, right, I get it.
Yeah.
I try not to dismiss things unless they really don't resonate.
One of the things I really gained from my experience was revisiting the place that I've visited in this realm. That was a real connector for me, that we can go places in our physical body. We just don't know we're going there. And then once you've done a trip, you recognize the places that you've been already. Has anybody got any questions?
If I can just go back to the angels, and I know we've touched on this before, am I right in thinking that there is only one true angel that because I used to call in like the angels, Gabriel and Michael, to walk with me and support and guide me. That's not. And then I was freaked out thinking, oh my God. So I'd like some clarification on that.
So in the upper aeon, there's another. What is it?
29?
Not 12. There's 24 in the upper aeon. Obviously, Sophia's number 36. That's how many archons there is, archangels. There's only one archangel who's actually in the lower aeons, which is good, which is Michael. Yeah. Hence why St. Michael's ley line is so powerful.
Right. Yeah.
Which is again runs from Avalon all the way through to the pyramids of Giza. why his artifacts is what slays the dragon, which is the sword of destiny, which is also Excalibur in King Arthur mythologies. So Archangel Michael is the only one who's not been manipulated, who didn't fall further. Gabriel was one of the ones, but he actually fell even further, which is why when you look through history, he caused a lot of the wraths, the plagues, was always Gabriel. So Gabriel's actual job, when people actually read Genesis, was he was meant to guide the character Jesus to aid Yaldabaoth. It was John the Baptist that put him on the Gnostic journey, which then guided him, which then aligned with Christ consciousness, which is why he became Jesus Christ and reincarnated, because he sinned and had to be reborn, which is what they talk about. And obviously that's when he left and went back. And obviously we're waiting for the return of Christ, not Jesus himself, but the return of Christ consciousness.
The anointed one within. You are the Christ.
Yeah, that's the energy you want is to be feeding off and asking for protection is Michael. So saying the Archangel Michael's prayer will help and stuff like that, which I think someone posted not long ago.
I cover all bases on that one, and I give gratitude to all the creators sent archangels, angels, and spirit guides on the upper eons. That's what I do. I cover all bases.
Dan, can we talk about how we would manifest dark entities? Because I think that's really important, and that watching movies, listening to music, etc. I mean, I did a Ouija board in my 20s. Naturally, the demon was here in my childhood, but I had no concept of what I could manifest when I did that Ouija board. You know,
well, that there is something that will open up your your portals through the chakra system. That's a heavy one, that one. But yeah, it's a good topic, that.
I enjoyed the experience, I have to say, but that's the darkness in me, I've got to say. But yeah, what can, I think that's a good question. What can manifest dark entities?
Again, it's all down to your mind. If you create fear and you're in a low vibrational state, you're creating those manifestations of lower negative energies, which then draws to you. And again, it's the opposite as well. When you're in such a higher state of vibration, these lower negatives will attack you because your aura is stronger for them to feed off. Hence why the experiences would be a lot stronger. The fear become a lot stronger because you're in such a good place. So when people go, say it happens in threes, like it's like a spiral. They just go down and everything goes wrong in one big gap, and you're like, holy shit, when's this going to end? And you just think, oh, fuck it. Everything's happening at once to me. And that's literally because you've got yourself in such a good place and negativity just wants to attack you. It's the simulation of Yaldabaoth. As soon as you start breaking its pattern, it's like you become on its radar. And then it's only until you become the grey person and go, you know what? You become a pest to it, like a virus. You become the parasite to its system. And it goes to the point where it goes, you know what? Fucking leave them. I can cope with one person getting out of the web.
I see it exactly like that. That we on a high vibration, and I like to bring aura into it. Our golden aura around us, and Yaldabaoth sees it, sends the archons to manipulate us through our emotional centers, being the chakra system, and that pulls us out of alignment. It then feeds off us. That's how I picture it. It feeds off us, and then we align to that, and that's exactly what it's trying to do. So that's where we have to walk between the Luciferic and the Aramanic and be the center ground and recognize what's going on in the esoteric, which manipulates us in the physical.
It's like people ask me why do I get obsessed with learning about occult and stuff like that. It's because you need to have this awareness around you to be able to understand what's going on.
Yep.
And then you have more control of yourself. So when you realize you're getting attacked, you're just literally moving yourself out of the game. I'm not going to retaliate, you know what you're aligning to, so you just pull yourself out of it, and you know the energy, and you think, I'm not going to give into that energy when it wants me to give into. And
You just
that's
do
why, to me,
exactly
it's
the
important.
opposite. Do exactly the opposite of what it's expecting you to do, and you will stop it in its track. And once you recognize it, you take its power away. Yeah. Cheers, Dwayne. Take care, mate. Any more questions? I'm sure there's people that have got other questions regarding what's being talked about tonight. Anybody?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. So do you think someone who's possibly had trauma as a child, entities could attach to them because of trauma, and then they maybe become alcoholic, and then alcohol doesn't help either? Yeah.
Yeah. So you've not just got childhood trauma, mate, you've also got past life trauma, which Deb can talk about as well, because
That's not me, it's the wife. Sorry.
Oh, is it? Yeah. So you've got both. So you can also have family trauma. So with your parents' trauma can be affecting to you as well, which is their entities. So if your parents ended up being drinkers and so forth, that is again an entity that's been attached to them, which then gets attached to you, and so forth. So it's entities are around all the time, but with traumas, that's why psychedelics are quite good. The same with hypnosis, because you can go into past life traumas, you can go into childhood traumas, and you can face these entities head on and no longer dwell on them. But one thing you won't do is you won't remember these experiences both in hypnosis and psychedelics. The reason why is because once these traumas are dealt with, they no longer need to be talked about in the physical or be brought with, because that has been healed.
Night, Mick.
Thanks.
Night, Mike.
Well, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Just trying to find someone who does psychedelics now. Probably the best way.
If you don't want to do the psychedelics, like there is hypnosis. Hypnosis is you've got quantum healing hypnosis. You've also got
yeah. I mean, I must admit, I have looked into QHHT and all that, but it's getting her there. You know.
Yeah,
it's
a lot of money.
So.
Yeah, and it's a lot. Again, it's a lot of money. You've got past life regression hypnosis, which is again what people do to go into the childhood or again past lives. So
What
the
part of
easy option
what
is
part of the
psychedelics.
country are you in, Michael?
Brentwood, Essex.
Okay, so
yeah,
just so anybody that's out there that might know somebody that can help Mike out, put a feelers out.
I must admit, I've wondered if, because I know Sharon does things, doesn't she? Didn't she do something for Richie? You know, Sharon in our group.
That's not psychedelics.
Childhood trauma, that, isn't it? Yeah,
Sorry?
childhood trauma. I think she deals with childhood trauma for emotions. I don't think she does the hypnosis. There is a lady shaman that I know of in Cornwall, but she does it through Anamita. So Anamita brings back your inner child. Which is where you don't have any sins, which is why again Anamita is quite powerful as a mushroom, especially microdosing with it, because it brings that inner child back, the kid that has no sin, has no fear. It's all about creation and creating things for its thoughts and imagination, and that's what we need to be going back to. That's what our original consciousness is not the ones that's got the sins. It's all about the creation, being the fun kid, the kid with no fear. He's not going to care about jumping in a river and getting wet.
Okay, lovely.
There you go. There you go, Michael. Lisa's just said you need to do a road trip up to Dan. There you go.
All right, yeah.
We just get our wellies on and go pick them.
Hey, we don't get them down in Kent, so stop that.
Neither
Dan.
in Essex that I'm aware of, anyway.
I'm gonna go and
Well,
ask
it's funny you
Morrison's if
say
they can
that.
get me some in.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think I mentioned it to some of you that here where we are in this part of Australia, Amanita is not meant to grow, and it's in Canberra. It's in the colder part, so you've got Tasmania, Victoria, Canberra, where it's really cold. And Amanita Dreamer said that the season is over here, but where we live in Northern Rivers, New South Wales, I know exactly where they're growing. So that's like really exciting.
Deb, we've had this
So
conversation.
don't think that they might not be in your area.
I know,
because
but
the temperatures are changing, you know.
everything has just changed. I mean, it's
Yeah.
mad.
I've just had
This
a
whole weather system is
revelation.
just mad.
I wonder if the temperatures are changing, so these mushrooms can grow everywhere, so everybody can that wants this experience can have this experience. Because they say that plants will grow when you need to heal. Like certain plants will grow in your garden that you need.
There is psychedelics literally every single part of the land, not just one type of mushroom. I think there's 140 odd species of mushrooms that are psychedelic. And even you've got your cactuses as well. So you've got the San Pedro cactus, which you can buy in your supermarkets. You know the one that you see on cowboy movies? That's another really strong psychedelic, and the natives take it and they call it the spirit walk, the native Indians. So when people you see on movies, they go walking off into the desert and you're on that spiritual journey. That is done with San Pedro, the cactus. There's certain toads, these roots, like the ayahuasca in South America, that's a root.
In Africa, they use toads. They lick these toads, those white goo that comes off them.
Yeah, the venom. So there is things, and again, what I've not mentioned is after you've come out of a psychedelic trip, you've got a thing called, it's a bit like Cambo, it's called purging. So you can throw up, you can do what Joe did and literally piss for like Niagara Falls, because it's your whole body getting rid of all the toxins that it's experiencing, all the badness coming out of your body, or you can literally spend a couple of hours shitting yourself on the toilet, because it's literally your body going through a cleanse.
Now, when he told me that, when he got here and he told me that, and I was like, I pray to God that I don't need to go for number 2 or a puke, because I'm really funny about, Dan's never been to mine and stuff. Who wants to go to the toilet in front of a practical stranger? So I was like, hopefully that won't happen. And I just weed, thankfully.
I'm just going to say something that Dan said earlier about cannabis being a grounding high. That's why I've tried it a couple of times in my life, but it's ground me to the fridge. I can't, it doesn't matter whose house I'm in, I'm straight into the fridge, mate. I can't be, I can't touch this stuff. Any other questions, guys?
That's another good thing with Amanita mushroom as well. Anything that you're addicted to, it actually quashes any addiction, because when your brain receptors it puts a little barrier on your brain receptors.
Okay, I know I'm coming, Dan. I'm coming. I know.
Cigarettes, sugar, chocolate, anything like that you're addicted to, it puts a little barrier on your brain receptors. So your brain needs that substance again before your brain receptor starts firing again. So what Amanita does, it destroys them blockages. So you no longer get the cravings from addiction. So people who started microdosing with Amanita, all of a sudden they quit smoking, they quit alcohol, and they don't understand why they're doing it. It's because they no longer need that that blockage in the receptor firing. So that's why it's really good to get your whole brain firing. So again, for people with ADHD, autism, once you start fixing the brain receptors, it starts firing off all your brain receptors again, so you become normal.
Absolutely. Well, I've got to say that was absolutely enlightening to me. As I say, I haven't done it, but it's answered a lot of questions I had. So I thank you all.
When are you doing yours, Dave?
As soon as I can get up to see Dan, because as I say, I'm one of these people that I have to trust who I'm around when I do things. So I'm in talks with Dan on that one. I think we're going to do a camping weekend or something. We're going to go camping and do it that way.
Yeah, I must admit that the vulnerability that you feel, if I'd have known that I was going to be just blurting out whatever, you know, I question it. And so I'm kind of glad that I didn't have that information beforehand. Else I may have questioned. I mean, when he told me you're going to be blindfolded, I was like, that's a bit dodgy. I don't want to be blindfolded. Because again, even being blindfolded, you're making yourself very vulnerable. But again, all I can say, and I said this to Lisa when we talked, from my experience, I'd advise people to do it from my own personal experience, because it really does, one, it heals and it really opens your especially if you are learning about the esoteric. What it's done for me is it's made me understand the esoteric a lot more than I did before. And it's made it real for me as well.
I mean, this is what I found with, and especially within the groups that we talking about. And I have seen so many people come from different walks and different perspectives, and especially in your case, Joe, it's made you see something that I think we've all talked about, and you've now seen it for yourself.
Yeah.
And you can assimilate to it, which is a beautiful thing to see. Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
Because, I was struggling with this whole, I'm me, this is me. I was holding on to this physical, and not because I didn't believe in it, because I've always believed in there's something more. I mean, crikey, I've had so many experiences to tell me that there are things that we can't explain. But because of my attachment to the physical, i.e. my animals, I've always held on to this. But seeing that, it's made it, there is no fear about, in fact, I've said this in the group, if I did one for my animals, I think I'd be saying, see ya. But, that's just talk. But it really made me feel that way, that this realm is hell. It isn't a pleasant place to be. It is full of pain and suffering. And yeah, we have the joy in life, of course we do. And I'm not taking that away. But every single thing on this planet is suffering. Nature, everything is suffering.
I think you're right there. We are suffering, but that's in, and I'm going to put it as the group energy. Once you see it the way you're seeing it, and the way we see it, you can actually understand what's going on, and you can choose to opt out of that pain and suffering.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking like for example, I felt the trees suffering, and it's because of all the technology and the infrastructure that they're putting in place, destroying the nature, they're cutting trees down. I felt all of that, so
can't change the construct. I'm afraid you can only change your individual.
Absolutely,
and can't change the construct.
And that's why this place is such a horrible place to be. When it's so beautiful.
It's a predator versus prey construct. That's exactly what it is, and that is what it's made of. And the only thing we can do is align ourselves so we get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and that's what we're all on a journey to learn.
Correct.
Oh, Ola's been in touch, by the way. So sometime in August, we should be having our chat. So any questions that you've got, Susie, because I know you had questions, pop them over to me.
Absolutely. If there's no other questions, guys, I've got an early start in the morning because I've got to take a friend of mine's dog to the vet in the morning because it's sick. If there's no other questions, otherwise I can make Dan the host and I can opt out. Is that the better option? There you go. I'll make Dan the host, and I've got to shoot.
Has anyone got any more questions, have they?
I don't know. Has anyone got any more questions?
I think everyone's done, Dave.
Oh, brilliant.
No,
okay,
I think
then.
I might contact you. I'm speaking to you a bit, Dan, anyway, about other stuff, so I'll contact you.
Guys,
if anyone is interested in coming, I can probably arrange something Midlands later on in the year. And plus, I need to restock on my mushrooms. It's not mushroom season yet. But if anyone's got any questions about the different types of mushrooms, like I say, if people don't want to go of the outer world and just want to do the healing, Amanita Mascara, which is the Mario mushroom, is really powerful for that. And it is what they call the Christ consciousness mushroom, because it literally just puts you the consciousness with Christ. It aligns you. It's the love mushroom. And the healing side of it is phenomenal.
Right.
As Sam would tell you, like now we're not got an ear, back pain's coming back, and your negative thinking starts coming back when you're on the mushroom microdose, and you literally have everything's positive. Perfect example is this: like, say if you had a car crash, you'd be pissed off that you've crashed your car, you'd be fuming, and you'd be gutted. But what this mushroom would do, you change your mindset. So instead of thinking like that, it'll literally go, well, I survived. It's only a car. I've got another day to live. I might as well make the most of it. So it literally changes the whole perception of everything. It's just a positive mushroom. So if people aren't wanting to go into the psychedelic route, that is another option. And again, you're healing through lucid dreaming. So when you hear people talk about the alpha, the delta, and the theta brainwaves, that is what the Amanita connects with. It starts firing up them brainwaves, which is where you can start changing the way you're thinking and get into the spiritual side. And it's all through lucid dreaming, not a case of going on a trip. So you just do it through your sleep, because that's when your body does all its healing, you're fixing. So it fixes a lot of physical things as well as your spiritual side.
I just want to attest to the Amanita as well. Of course, I didn't have a lot, but Dan did bring some for me in about a week. It lasted me about a week. My eyesight improved. My concentration improved. I wasn't feeling tired. My eyes weren't straining when I was driving, when I was looking at the computer. I was getting up in the mornings and doing things like washing up and just being active. I just felt more motivated. So that's what that did for me. Whether that was a trail on from the psychedelics as well, I don't know. But for that week, I felt amazing. And like I said, my eyesight was much more improved.
I'm just going to ask a question, which is probably a trivial one. Amanita Panthera is the one we're talking about, is it?
No, Pantherina is so Amanita Mascara is the queen of the mushroom. Pantherina
that's the Jesus one, the Jesus consciousness one.
So Pantherina is they call it the king. It's actually, I think it's like 100 times stronger than Amanita. I don't know how to work with that yet. I'm still learning how to.
So which is the one we're talking about for the one I want to do?
The Mascara.
Mascara. That's the one.
The Mascara, the red and white one. The Mario mushroom.
I've got a mushroom app, and I was going through all the mushrooms, which and I saw Amanita Panthera, Mascara. That's the one.
Yeah, Pantherina is, you've got to be careful picking that one, because there's a lot of deadly ones very similar. That's why no one really touches it. And again, because the dosage is so strong, it can cause poisoning. So again, that's one of the reasons why I've never worked with it. But I'm starting to just read through and learn about the dosages and the quantities of it in a minute. Because I obviously try it on myself before I start using it for other people. But the Amanita Mascara is, even though they label it as toxic in all the books and poisonous and deadly, it's not. You've just got to know how to work it.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's all alchemy, end of the day.
Yeah. No,
that's absolutely all it is. It's just plain alchemist.
Now, it's interesting to know, and this is why anything that is good for us or can open up spiritually, they label as deadly and this and that. But anything that connects us from spirit, i.e. alcohol, nothing said about it. Nothing said about it.
Well, I've been asking that question for years, why is cannabis illegal and alcohol is legal? And they're even putting out there now like cow parsley is poisonous. Okay, they're just trying to mess with people, But anyway, we know the scores on that.
We do. Guys, I'm gonna love and leave you guys and say thank you very much to everyone tonight. Have a good one. Love you all.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dan. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye.